All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. I think most of the group that registered is on the line. This is Zack Pike, Director of Client Solutions for Alight, and many of you on the phone I've spoken to before. And then who else we have on the webinar today is Mike Wieners, who is our Manager of Product Development. Mike's been critical to the development of the ChannelMix Control Center, which we're going to talk about here, and he'll be walking us through it for about the next 25 to 30 minutes here. This webinar is scheduled for 45 minutes. I doubt we'll use the whole time. And just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Everybody on the call is muted, so if you guys are talking on our end, we can't hear you, but you can enter questions into the box on your screen and we'll get those. We're going to try and hold the questions till the end, so we should have plenty of time at the end to answer any questions around workflow, around features, future development, all that kind of fun stuff at the end. So go ahead and enter those questions in as you have them. And the only other housekeeping item I have is that we'll be recording this webinar, so you'll have access to it afterwards. We'll send it out, and we've also got videos on our YouTube channel that explain some of this information as well. And then outside of that, so any questions that you have after this webinar, just shoot me a note, shoot your Client Solutions Specialist or Client Solutions Manager a note or a ticket, and we will get back with you, and if we need to have any follow-up calls or emails to answer anything, we're happy to do that as well. Okay? All right, so just a couple of kind of summary items before we hop into the tool itself. Today we're gonna show you the ChannelMix Control Center. This is something that everyone got access to early this week. And so hopefully you've had a chance to jump in and kind of tinker around, and then this will help explain all of the various features and benefits of the tool itself. Just a quick background on the Control Center. So the ChannelMix Control Center is designed to give you as a client more control over the data inside ChannelMix, and then also to get some summarized views of that data. All of it's kind of in the effort of just improving your workflow around reporting, around analysis, around getting data set up, and then one of the most exciting features is around applying custom business rules to that data in an efficient manner. So you'll see all of that on the webinar here today. As far as what's next, so this is a first iteration of the ChannelMix Control Center. There's lots of development to come in 2017, and a lot of that is going to be fueled by your feedback. So after we get through this webinar, any ideas, thoughts you have, send them our way, and then throughout the year as you're using this tool, be vocal about those thoughts as well. Okay? All right, so at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Mike Wieners, again, our Manager of Product Development. And Mike's going to take us through the tool here and show us all the features and functions that we've got.
Thanks, Zach. And welcome to the login page, something I'm sure many of you have already seen. But we're going to start at the beginning. And I found that it's better if I don't talk while I'm typing.
Something I'll mention while Mike's getting us logged in here, everyone on the call should have their login and credentials already set up. If you don't, just shoot us a ticket and we'll get those set up. But also any other members within your organization. So if you've got other team members who need access and don't have access today, just let us know and we can get them set up as well.
All right, when you log in, you will arrive at the home screen, as you might imagine. We've just got some summary information about the data ecosystem here, including the total number of clients that have been onboarded into the system, the total number of data views that is across clients and data sources, the total number of distinct data types that we're connecting to, including the most common connections here, the total number of account users set up, and then the top contributors to data. Sorry, I went counterclockwise there, a little unintuitive. by brand, so that in this case brand 8 has the most data along with the total amount of storage being utilized for you. Moving to the Kinect section, for those who are users of the previous interface, this is really just carrying over the authorizations area with a little bit of enhancement, and I want to go through that. First, pointing out a couple of features. The drop-down menu, so right now we're looking at the MediaFire agency. This is basically what we have are the active connections up top, and then below a section for adding connections. And this is across the agency, and then we can go and look at any individual brand. So we can see the list shrunk here for brand 8. Various changes here as I go through them. Now, brand 4, we'll see, doesn't have anything set up yet for Facebook. So I'm just going to go through the Facebook OAuth process. So we come down here to add a connection. We see that Facebook is right here and click on it. You just get a little thing that says you'll be taken away from the website to the Facebook website to authorize your account. This all happens very quickly. You'll barely notice that you left. And sure enough, we're back. And here we are on brand 4, and here's Facebook. And this new connection here has my name. That's because I was logged into my personal Facebook account when I did this. So this is one of the enhancements from the previous version. You can actually see now what you have authorized and make sure that the name of the account is correct. And if there are sub-accounts, you can drop down and see them. Of course, for my personal page, I don't have any sub-accounts, so it's just the one. So speaking of sub-accounts, I do want to show what that looks like. And I think Google Analytics is a really good place to do that because there are many, in many cases, you can have many accounts. So the way Google Analytics works is basically any Google Analytics account profile that you have access to with the user you have authorized will show up here. So for this one, we have all of these websites for Alight Analytics. All right. And let's say we want to associate this reporting profile, number 1, to brand 1. And now when the calls are set up for Google Analytics, we'll be pulling the data from this exact profile, the one that you've associated with brand 1. Here you have the option to remove it. And this option only remains as long as there are no active calls set up. Once we have used this credential to set up a call, load data into the database, we won't let you delete this association anymore because it will break your calls. But this does help with the setup process, especially with more complicated setups like Google Analytics. All right, a couple of other things to talk about here are adding connections for which there is no OAuth process. So let's see, MarchX is an example. And you'll see that this just brings you to a page that says request connection to MarchX and gives the name of the agency and the connection. And when you click submit, it's just going to send a ticket with this information to us, and then your Client Solutions Manager will get in touch with you about the specifics of setting up that data source. So what is it that we need to get a connection rolling with MarchX? Is it an API key? Is it a username, password, etc.? So we can get it set up in the system for you.
Yeah, so hey everyone, this is Zach again. So this doesn't necessarily change the current workflow of requesting new data sources. This is a better way to authorize access. That won't always be the case in the future. Again, there's lots of development coming, but for today, we'll keep the current process as far as providing access, but when we're authorizing these sources, we'll be sending you here to make those authorizations.
All right, and then one other feature on this screen I want to point out is right here where it says connection not listed. And if we click on that, it's a very similar case, requesting a new data source. In this case, you can freeform tell us exactly what it is that you would like. So I'll say, I'm not going to say it while I'm typing it because again, for some reason I can't handle it. So I said I would like to load some sales data files into the database for brand 3, and you submit that ticket. And again, you can provide as much or as little information. It's really just a matter of having enough info here for us to sort of get you started. Again, working through the specifics of that setup so that we can have the right structure in place to load the data into the system. But this does happen quite frequently where we load data from files or give you the option to do that for your clients. So speaking of file upload, we'll move to that feature next. Again, this is a feature that existed in the previous version of this interface. So we will show you here. So I've got MediaFire brand 3 file upload that's already set up. And I'm going to just go in here and select the file for Yandex paid search, which is a new source for this particular client. And we say upload success. Now, just briefly, I want to talk about the success message. This just means that the file was successfully loaded into the site. It then has to go through a process that, again, is defined by file type, where we take the file, if there's any programmatic changes we need to make to it to get it loaded properly into the database and communicate with the rest of the data. So you'll see down here a status comes up, and the status for this one now shows as DQ'd. So there are 3 statuses that you will hopefully only ever see in here. The first is NQ'd. That means that it's waiting to be loaded. Then there is DQ'd. That means that there is a server actively working on getting the data loaded. And then hopefully the only other one you'll see is success, meaning it was loaded. The only other option beside that is failure, which means that it was not successfully loaded. And there could be a number of reasons why. Usually it's because the file doesn't match the constraints that were agreed upon when the file upload was set up. So we'll refresh this. And sure enough, we have success for the file I just loaded. And that's how the file upload system works. All right. The next area is the library section, and it shows a summary of data across data sets and brands. And I'm going to let Zach just sort of walk through some of the use cases here while I click.
Yeah, so the library section was designed to give you the beginning of that summarized overview of kind of your ChannelMix ecosystem. So along the left-hand side, you see the various clients or business units that you have inside the platform. And then along the top, you've got every individual view of data that is currently set up. And then in the middle section there, the indicators are identifying where there is where data is actively flowing by client and by view. So the real benefit of this is if you're getting ready to build a report, or you're sitting in a meeting with a planning team determining what needs to be done for a given client or business unit, you've got a quick snapshot of the data that's currently out there ready to be reported on or analyzed. There's some additional features inside this view as well. So you'll see Mike navigate up to the upper left-hand corner. We can select individual clients or business units, and then we can also select individual data sources. So if I, in this case, just need to see brand 9 and all of the views I currently have for brand 9, I've got them right here. In addition to that, you can also switch the axes that these are displayed on to help kind of clean things up if you need to look at this view in a different manner.
Thanks, Zach. The other thing that's handy, you'll see with this particular setup, there's not a lot of information that's sort of leaving the screen, leaving the field of view. But it can happen, and so we've added a little bit of functionality to help with that with these pens here by brand. So if you want to keep some here in this fashion, it's just another way to sort of filter if I want to see more than one brand. Maybe I'm an analyst who works on a specific basket of clients, and I want to filter out the noise, if you will, when I'm looking at this, and I can see just the ones I need, the data sources associated with them, and easily identify that I'm going to need to get Twitter loaded up for this brand for the full social analysis I'm about to do, for example. All right, the last section of this site is one that I'm most excited about. And this really is the first time in the interface that we're giving you an opportunity to change your data, to fix things that may have gone wrong. And this tool has a lot of potential. It's been implemented now for a somewhat specific set of use cases. But the way this works is that you tell us what it is you want built into the rules, and we set it up for you. And then as we do that, these boxes here that describe the rules will show up so that you can manage them. So I'm going to take you into one of those. This is GA Campaigns Brand 6 VGA session. And we're going to give the campaigns more useful names. So the way this particular rule was set up is we had these campaigns that have numbers, campaign 1, campaign 2, campaign 28, etc. And that's not very useful for our reporting. Certainly when we're showing this to the clients for whom we're running the campaigns, they need more relevant information, more descriptive information. So what we did in this case was we took the campaign field as it exists in Google Analytics. And to back up, another thing here is, say you change a naming convention in a source system like AdWords, and you still want to show the data blended together, right? The AdWords data can be updated in the database, but once Google Analytics data has been processed by Google Analytics, you can't change it. So the only way to get around that then in this case is to actually do something with the data in the database. So those are just a couple of quick use cases. And we're just talking about campaign, but this will work on really any descriptive data. So being able to, I know one situation we have a lot is, say a company that has a lot of specific locations or product lines, and they want to map more metadata detail about those in bulk. And so we would choose the descriptive information that exists in the data set that allows us to identify it, and then specify the field or fields that we want to add, like location, name, address, any other attributes that you might want. Okay, so in this simple solution, again, we're going to fix these campaign names just so they have more meaning. And to illustrate it, I've pulled up in Tableau here. I'm going to hop over to that just really quickly. So this is a Tableau reporting tool that many of you may be familiar with. So the focus here really should be on just the information in the middle. So we have campaign, we have campaign descriptive, and here I've just pulled in the number of sessions associated with each campaign. So we've got the Halloween Spectacular that you may have seen on the previous screen, and then the Summer Blowout that obviously did not get a lot of traffic in this case. But Halloween time is nearing its end. We've already started advertising for Thanksgiving, and we're going to say that that is campaign number 80. So what I want to do here is add another row, and then the pencil to edit. I type in campaign 80. All right. The green check mark saves. Now this just saves the record here in the interface, and you can add a whole bunch and then apply them. The way it works now, then we'll hit apply rule. All right, go back, we'll take you back to the screen that shows all of the rules that have been set up. Stay here, keeps us here because I want to show you one more option. You have the option to also upload a CSV. So the way this works here, we have campaign and campaign descriptor. Those are the two names we saw before. Is just the structure of a CSV file. And what you could feasibly do is download the full list of your campaigns if you have a lot of them, assign the names in that CSV file, and then upload the file. And the most important thing to note is to not repeat campaign names because it could cause duplication in the database. That's a way to handle them in bulk. So hopefully I've stalled enough now that all of the updates have been made, and I can hop back over and we can see Gobble Gobble now as campaign 80. So I'm connected here to VGA session for brand 6, as I pointed out, and this is a live connection to the database. So I'm just going to refresh it. And it hasn't quite updated. So just to talk about why, what happens when we do this is that we have to enter in the information, basically what was the term and what will the term be, and then we have to put that in our controller and then send that information out to the database, and then it has to review all of the records as they exist in the database and make sure that we get the right data loaded for that. Once that is done, it then passes in to your views automatically, and also updates any future loads with that information as they're set up. We're going to try it one more time. If it's not here, we're going to talk about the one last thing that I want to discuss, and then we'll come back and see if it's shown up by then. But we don't have to. Here it is. It got all loaded up while I was talking. Campaign 8 now says Gobble Gobble, and we're ready to go. So data loads up tomorrow with campaign 80 in it. We're going to have this nice descriptive name for any future representations of that. All right, I did mention there's one last thing I want to make sure to talk about, and this is really important because the ChannelMix Control Center, really the whole platform, is built around making your lives easier, taking all of the headache out of data setup, taking all of the time spent on what are really sort of low value activities and refocusing them on the high value activity of doing actual analysis and using your data. And in the interest of doing that and making it better, it was really important to me, I pushed hard for this, to have this feedback button to make it really easy for somebody, no matter where you are, if you're using the system and you see something, hey, this would be better if I could do it this way, or this is a feature that would be really handy for me right now. I know that I have a ton of ideas for what I think would be useful, but the way I use the system is very different from the way that you, our customers, will be using the system. And so rather than try to guess or hope I'm right, because I really feel like my ideas are awesome, but they may not be practical for what you want to use. We really want to use this feedback early with the Client Control Center to tighten up what it is that we've built and make it really hum for you, and really see how we can focus on what the next future enhancements are, because we have a ton of ideas for them, but we'd hate to build something that we think is really rad and then you not be excited about it when it comes out. So please use this early and often. Don't be afraid. We really, really want all of the honest feedback we can get to make this thing as great as it can be.
Yeah, everyone, and I'll just echo Mike's comment. The feedback from you is absolutely critical to the development plan for this tool in 2017 and in the future, even past that. So be open and honest with that feedback, ideas, even if they don't relate to something that's in here today. We want to know about it. So keep that feedback flowing. And I am going to pause here for just a few seconds, and we'll see if any questions flow in, and then we'll get answers to them here in just a couple of seconds.
We have one question so far, and I think it's a great one. I love that it's about the rules because, again, I'm really excited about this feature. And it's about what kind of, can we have more complex logic in here? The answer is yes, we can. And the specific one was about the setup of the tweet text, so I want to read it directly. So Can the if column on rules contain more complex logic? For example, if the action type is tweet and the tweet text begins with the @ sign, then you would apply a value. Yes, in short, that is possible. It's going to look, I'm going to back up on that. The left side, the left character, I don't know if we have built it to be that specific yet. I think it just takes whole characters, but that's exactly the kind of feedback that we need. I believe that is a change that we should make. It's really these real world applications that are going to be extremely important as we move forward. So the way it works now is you can have more complex logic, but it's the entirety of a field. So if campaign is this and source is Google or medium is CPC, then you could have something here. So we can base it on multiple qualifiers, and you can also map to multiple values.
Yeah, and I'll just add one thing on the rules piece. So today, when you're poking around the control center in your own login, you're probably not seeing any rules set up out there. So if you've got thoughts on rules, just submit a Zendesk ticket with the details, and that's how that process will get started. So we have to pre-build the kind of the plumbing around the rule. Then we make it available to you inside the control center, and then you can control it from that point forward, adding rules aligned to that. Also deleting them. So if you enter something in incorrectly, there's a misspelling, or it's not quite impacting the data like you thought, it can all be deleted right there in the interface without having to come back to us.
That's right. One other thing I want to mention about rules, as I said, the setup must be done on our side. A big goal for me is to start to get these practical applications of it in here and get these rules set up. And what my team is working on as we're setting these up is really trying to hone that workflow to get it to a point where we can just roll it out and let you set up your own rules. It is somewhat complex to make sure that it all gets set up correctly and you end up with exactly what you want. And so we want to make sure that it is intuitive as possible, so you don't have to have a 5-page primer or a guide just to work through setting up a rule. And that's why the rule setup is still being done by us. We feel like we have some work to do yet on making that rule setup truly intuitive so anybody can use it.
All right, I'm going to pause for just a couple more seconds and see if we've got any other questions that flow in. All right, I think we've covered everything as far as the control center goes. If you think of any questions after this webinar, just shoot us a note. We're happy to answer those or hop on another call if we need to. Actually, sounds like we just had one question come in. Let's get that one answered here real quick.
The question is, will there be any sort of tiered access in the future? And my guess is by that you mean, are we going to sell access to different features as we roll them out? Zach, do you have an interpretation?
Yeah, so as far as tiered levels from a feature perspective, I don't think that's on the plan today. But Mike, do you want to speak to tiered?
Well, let's start. So the question is between team members. So that to me sounds more like access that's sort of limited by client. And it's absolutely possible to do that the way we have this set up. We can set up access on a client-by-client basis if you tell us that that's what you want to do. And then the next question was some who can make changes and some who are only able to view. That I do not believe is a possibility, but again, is a great piece of feedback for us and for the development that we want to do with this. And I'm writing it down. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks everyone for the time. Hopefully this has been insightful. I'll just mention real quick, we're going to send this recording out in an email next week. So you'll have it, and feel free to send it on to whoever else you think would benefit from it. And then on the Alight Analytics YouTube channel, we've got some tutorials around the control center there as well. So those will always be out there for anyone that needs to use them. Thanks for your time.